I have a motion to excuse council members Barry and Whitten for personal reasons.
So move.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Council member Huckabee, would you lead us in the pledge?
Of course. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor, let the record reflect that the city attorney broke the chair here.
City attorney broke the chair. The record reflects that.
My chair, it's the city manager's chair.
Councilmember Felling, you would like to say something.
Yes, I'd like to, I never thought I would be contemplating this around a month after a previous issue, but I'd like to recognize a moment that has saddened all of us with the death of 4 police officers for the city of Lakewood. That's horrific enough. What to me is absolutely chilling is that those 4 officers, along with the officer who was murdered about a month previously, all were murdered merely because they were wearing the uniform of a police officer. And I try to imagine what it's like for officers all over the country as they get up to go to work, wondering, am I going to be confronting some crazy individual like this? And I also wonder what it's like for their families as they see them off each day to go out and do the job that helps all of us. So I would like to ask that we just take a moment of silence to remember those officers and to think about their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Felling. Next is public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to address the council. 3-minute limit per person, or 5 minutes if representing the official position of a recognized community organization. And if you would state your name and address when you come to the podium. And we have Helen Baxter first.
Helen Baxter, P.O. Box 702, Falls City, Washington 98024, and that is just a mailing address, not a house residence, just for people wondering that. I wanted to give a face to the email that I sent you last night regarding the Sammamish Heritage Society. Read that email for public record.
I didn't hear you.
Better? Okay, want me to start over, Kathy?
Please.
Okay. Helen Baxter, P.O. Box 702, Falls, blah, blah, blah. I wanted to come in and give face to the email that I sent to council members last night and read that email for the matter of record, and also to tell you a little bit about where I was before I came today. I met a bunch of children at the Sammamish Library who are doing a school project on history in Sammamish. And unbeknownst to me, despite working for the Lake Washington School District, the Lake Washington School District now has part of their social studies curriculum for second graders to learn about their city's history. That means every second grader in the Lake Washington School District at Rachel Carson, Blackwell, Smith, McCullough, Margaret Mead are all trying to learn about Sammamish history. And they're all trying to learn it from a very little resource. And these kids were pretty enthused. I was a little disappointed that I didn't know the answers to all the questions, but it was exciting. They were enthused, they were interested, they were surprised when I told them things. Their moms, who hadn't lived here that long, were surprised by things. They had no idea. So it was a good opportunity for me to reflect a little bit and realize there is a purpose, there is a reason that I and a few others do what we do. And now there appears to be a greater purpose because a bunch of second graders are going to need our help. So on that note, Sammamish Council members, as you look forward to the future of our city, the Sammamish Heritage Society would ask that you please honor its past. During difficult financial times, every person and organization struggles to make ends meet, to prioritize spending, and make difficult decisions regarding cuts. The council is in the process of working on the budget and funds and are possibly and funds are possibly being allocated to Ethnic Diversity, the Arts Council, the Farmers Market, and the Sammamish Symphony. The members of the Heritage Society acknowledge the importance of these entities receiving funds, but are at a loss as to why the history of Sammamish is not of importance. Perhaps those entities have asked, and we have not been so bold. It is now time for us to ask, as our financial situation is dire. We respectfully request that the council consider a sum of $5,000. This sum would cover our storage cost, website management, and our post office box, and give us funds to host a community event and/or fundraiser. Please take into account our needs and consider supporting the Sammamish Heritage Society. Respectfully, members of the Sammamish Heritage Society. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen.
Thanks.
Next is Maureen Santoni.
I'm Maureen Santoni. I live at 22828 Southeast 6th Place in Sammamish, just across the road. I'm also talking about the Sammamish Historical Society and or Heritage Society, and I'm speaking just from reading the article that was in the Sammamish Reporter, and thank Jake Lynch, the editor, for writing it and bringing the situation to light. My husband and I are sending a check, and I hope that each of you will open your wallets as well as that of the city to help them out. As Jake wrote, in order to comprehend your future, you need to understand the past. And we always enjoyed looking at the photographs that were on display at DC Grill when it was open. When we'd be waiting for a table, they were surrounding that area, and it was just fun to look at them and see what the area looked like, and to see places that we remembered, you know, like Sadler Store when it was here. And anyway, we missed that. There are, you know, new restaurants there, and the pictures are gone. And now I guess some of them are here, but the city, the Historical Society is running out of funds and paying for them to be stored elsewhere. It just seems like there must be a room upstairs or somewhere in this large city hall for them to have an office and storage space. Maybe they could use part of the mansion that sits empty across the way to, it just seems criminal to have them paying for storage for our history somewhere else. And it pointed out in the article, the city of Issaquah gives $80,000 a year to its historical society and free rent to 2 facilities. Redmond also gives generously to support its historical society and free rent for space and pays for all the mailings for the historical society. I think the small amount that you were just asked to give is very little compared to these other cities and how they honor their past. And I do know that these are tough times and you have lots to consider, but just looking at the agenda, we're talking about a lot of money in here, and I know it goes to a lot of things, but somewhere in there has to be money for our history and to preserve it. And I'm a substitute teacher in the schools, and I know about these kids doing these projects, and where do they go, you know, to find out all this information? It's really important that we preserve our past, so I hope you consider it in your budget and out of your own wallets as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maureen. It was nice of DC Steak to actually donate all those photos to us, and we have them here in City Hall.
Throughout the old conference rooms, offices, and we're going to put some of them also here at the chamber.
Oh, good.
Good. Okay, is there anybody else that would like to address the council at this time? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Next is the approval of the agenda. Is there any change to the agenda that anybody wants to make? Then, if there's no objection, the agenda is approved. Next comes student liaison reports, and Maddie March from Eastlake High School.
Okay, so I wanted to start with saying good luck to basketball, boys swim, and gymnastics who just started their season at Eastlake. We just finished up our fall play, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It was hugely successful for our drama program. On December 9th, we're having our fall music concert at 7 p.m. For the band and orchestra. The EHS Black and White Dance is on the 11th at 8 p.m. in the lower gym. And then financial aid night is December 16th at 7 p.m. for parents of seniors who want to find out more information about the FAFSA and how to fill that out for colleges and scholarship opportunities through our school.
Great, thank you, Maddie. Casey Cunningham for Skyline.
Okay, so Skyline, we wanted to say congratulations to girls soccer who won state, and then also girls swim won state. It's Everyone's pretty excited. And then this Saturday, we have our football state game against Ferris. And so wishing good luck to all the football boys. And at Skyline last week, we had a junior college workshop, 2 hours. It was like 100 juniors came, so a big turnout. And this week and next week, we're running a food drive and a warm drive. And so far, we've gotten a lot of food and a lot of blankets and stuff. So.
Well, that's wonderful news about the swimming and soccer teams. And,
Very exciting.
and the
Maybe football, too.
Yeah, well, the deputy mayor and I were down in Tacoma last weekend, and,
Oh, yeah.
and that was one great game.
It was a big game, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So hope to get down there this Saturday too. I think it's at 7:30, isn't it?
7:30, yeah. $10.
At the Tacoma Dome. Very nice seating there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, both of you,
All right, thank
and you're
you.
excused for your academic work now.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, tonight we have no presentations or proclamations. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
So next is the consent agenda, and we have a long consent agenda tonight. Does any council member wish to remove an item from the consent for further discussion? No? Well, the list starts with the payroll for pay period ending November 15th, approval of the claims for period ending December 1st in the amount of $1,332,315.11, approval of the minutes for the October 13th special meeting and study session, approval of the notes for the October 19th study session, minutes for the October 20th regular meeting, the minutes for the November 3rd regular meeting, the notes for the November 10th study session, and the notes for the November 16th study session. And then items 8, 9, and 10 are the ordinances for the 3 school districts. And this is for the impact fees, and it says for 2009, and that actually is correct. The school districts approved the fees in 2009, and they are for projects that pay the fees in 2010. So that was the confusion with the dates the last time. So those are ordinances 2009-269 for Issaquah School District, 270 for Lake Washington School District, and 271 for Snoqualmie Valley School District number 410. Then item number 11 is a resolution adopting a policy prohibiting discrimination in community athletic programs, and that's resolution 2009-391. Item 12 is a resolution establishing a city wellness program. That's resolution 2009-392. And that's really a great program that we're going to do. Other cities in Association of Washington Cities are part of that, and we get, I think, a 2% discount on our benefit packet, which amounts...
It's about a $15,000 savings approximately for city for spending $2,500 on this program.
Right, so that makes sense. And number 13 is the final plat approval for Trussex 13 subdivision. That's resolution 2009-393. 14 is amending resolution 2008-314. That's the city's master fee schedule, and that is resolution 2009-394. Item 15 is the bid award on the Southeast 20th Street non-motorized improvement project, which, as you noticed in the booklet, is a wonderful bid. We had 20 bidders, I believe, and the winning bid came in quite a bit below the engineer's estimate.
Almost half.
Almost half. Item 16 is a contract with Community Sports Field Maintenance, with Northwest Landscape Services for the sports field maintenance at Eastlake and Skyline High School. And that's a continuation of a contract that's started last year.
Yes.
And item 17 is landscape maintenance with Total Landscape Services, which is also in the second year. And item 18 is custodial maintenance services with Advantage Building Services, and that's also second year. And all 3 of those are at the same rate as the previous year.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
So that's the consent agenda. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, is it too late to ask that we have a short presentation on number 16 about the sports field maintenance contract?
Sure.
Could I ask to have
it's
that
not
removed?
too late.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we can remove that, and well, we'll take care of it right after we pass the rest of the consent agenda.
Correct.
Okay, so Without objection on the consent agenda with item 16 removed, the consent agenda is approved. So item 16 is the contract for the community sports field maintenance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask our Parks and Recreation Director, Jesse Richardson, to give his staff report on that. Jesse?
I have so many contracts here. Let me find the right one. Okay.
It's with Northwest Landscape.
Yes. So this is the contract for maintenance of our 2 synthetic turf fields at the 2 high schools. Pretty much the extent of the maintenance is routine sweeping to redistribute the fill on the fields. That's mostly what we're doing with this contract. If there's a specific question,
It just struck me that, I know we've done this last year, so I didn't think there were any big surprises about it coming back again. I was just kind of curious whether it's the nature of the job that we have for them that makes it something we shouldn't do with staff, or what is it about this activity that's worth the $100,000 a year, and are they more efficient at it? Do they have specialized equipment or training?
we do, specialized equipment is required for these fields. We have sweepers at both sites that go in and actually sweep the field. So yes, there's equipment involved. It's also a weekly, if not daily, task. So it's something that we felt is best performed by contract. It's not a specialty per se. For example, our park maintenance folks handle mowing our athletic fields because we want it done a certain way. They handle all of our irrigation because we want it done a certain way. But things that are routine and somewhat generic, if you will, we handle by contract. I can tell you that last year when we went out to bid, we were evaluating whether or not this particular contract could be brought in-house, and the quote came in much lower than previous years, and we really decided that the best use of our funds was to continue to contract.
Yeah, it's actually $58,000.
It's $58,000, and actually, I do visit these fields almost weekly basis, either for my kids' soccer game that I go there watch, or I actually play in some of these fields too.
Yeah,
They're doing a great job of maintaining the fields. And these have to be maintained to get the 9 years of useful life. To do that, there's a special sweeper that they have. And when we looked at this maintenance and operation, at the time when we built the fields, it made sense to contract this particular service out rather than hiring a full-time employee, purchasing the equipment, and dealing with the maintenance breakdown of the equipment. It's sensitive equipment that requires a high maintenance.
Right. I see that the budget line item is the 98,000, but the actual contract here is the just under 58,000.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what we were anticipating was closer to 100 last year, and we're pleasantly surprised when the quotes came in so low.
Great. I think that's enough, and I understand it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. So do I have a motion to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Northwest Landscape Services?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote of 5-0, that's approved.
Thank you.
So now we're on to new business. Item number 19, which is a resolution making a declaration of substantial need for purposes of setting the limit factor for the property tax levy for the fiscal year 2010.
We have a staff presentation on this, Mr. Mayor. With your indulgence, what I'd like to do is that have the finance director to make the staff presentation for item 19, 20, and 21. They're all interrelated. And then the council can take each one of those action items one at a time.
Okay.
Lyman?
Great. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you. I've switched up the presentation just a little bit, so it'll look a little bit different than what you've seen in the recent past. So we'll go fairly quickly. I've tried to summarize a lot of what we've discussed in the past, but I just wanted to bring you up to date on changes that we have made based on your direction.
So this is item 21 now.
This is item number 21, and I will get to item 19 basically at the end.
Okay.
Okay, this is a calendar for 2009. You currently have a budget, the 2009-2010 biennial budget. This is the 2009 calendar that we have gone through for this particular year on adjustments or menu items. Just by way of an overview, Sammamish has what we would term a rather successful mode of operations. We have exercised prudent financial management, thanks to the council and the wise decisions that they've made. We pride ourselves in having a higher level of service with lower taxes than we would have otherwise had we not incorporated, and also I'd have to say with some of our comparable cities around us. We have lean and efficient staffing levels, which I think everybody will attest to, and we have taken a little bit different approach to providing services to our citizens. Where we can, we try to contract out. The sports field work that was just discussed previously is a very good example of that. And for lack of a better term, we're defining a Sammamish level of service and not necessarily a full level of service that some of the other cities around us do provide. We have not tried to be all things to all people. Council has prioritized what services we do provide based on the needs of our community. And one of the ways one of the measures of being successful, I will like to point out that recently, last year, we were designated by Standard & Poor's of achieving a AAA bond rating. So that's something to be very, very proud of. Just another quick look. We've updated this slide for our general fund revenues. I'll point out that Sammamish's revenue structure is somewhat different than the rest of, or most cities throughout the Washington state. Most cities have approximately a quarter of their revenue coming from property taxes, a quarter from utility taxes, and a quarter from sales and use taxes. And then the remaining quarter comes from a variety of fees and other revenue sources. Sammamish is unique in that property tax is our major component. It's our major source of revenue. 2008, property tax made up about 68% of our general fund operations. Sammamish has no utility tax. It's something that still remains in the toolbox or in the quiver, as it were, and it is something that the council potentially could avail themselves of as we go forward and may want to consider to help diversify our revenue stream. Sales tax is approximately 10% of our revenue. So if you look at property tax and sales tax together, it makes up about 78% of our revenue. And then approximately the other quarter is made up from miscellaneous fees and other charges that is consistent with, approximately consistent with what other cities have as far as their revenue makeup. Looking closer to home, this is the updated slide related to general fund revenue per capita comparison. And I'm very pleased to point out that Sammamish has the lowest revenue per capita of these east side cities, our peer cities that we're looking at. The cities from left to right are the least populated to the most populous. So Issaquah being the smaller city, all the way to Bellevue on the other. We're right in the middle, but we're very pleased to point out that about $700 per capita is what our revenue base is for general fund. It's something council can be very proud of. On the expenditure side, Sammamish actually looks very much like an outlier on this particular issue. Again, the same cities are shown on the slide, with Issaquah being on the left side, having a expenditure per capita of $965. Bellevue on the right with $801. In general, you would think that economies of scale do come into play on this. But again, Sammamish, by being very efficient and really looking at what our priorities are for expenditures, is very, very low in this particular area. So it's something that we can be very proud of. Yes, Kathy?
Do you have an idea? It seems like the law and justice ours is very small compared to the others. Can you give us an idea? Is that because they have court systems, or why is there so much higher? I know it's not because there's more criminal activity.
Well, I can probably answer that better because I spent a lot of time on this one, Kathy. Statewide average per capita, public safety services, most cities pay about 300 plus per dollars per capita. We're about approximately $120, $130 for a number of reasons why we pay less. Number one reason, obviously, we have a community has a low crime rate. We don't have a major freeways going through in the middle of the city, which is very conducive to transient crimes. Second is that the socioeconomics of our community plays a critical role in terms of the low crimes. Highly affluent community, well-educated community, that plays a big role too. Third is the contract model. We contract with the King County Sheriff's Office. We don't necessarily pay full-time basis all the police services that we need. We only pay for the portions of those services that we use. For example, K-9 unit, we don't need to have a police officer here around the clock waiting for services to be called. We pay a very small portion of that particular service in the King County Sheriff's Office. About a month ago, we had a helicopter here in the city chasing an individual actually right in the town center area. But we don't necessarily pay for that full year services. We only pay when we call for services.
Was that the one that Will Smith came in on?
That was a Skyline High School football game. That was a Friday night event. We actually had somebody was running around. Cops were chasing him right in the southeast 4th Street. That he was in that area, so we had to call the helicopter unit to identify him. So the contracting model have worked very well for us in the public safety, and I think that play a big critical role.
Are you saying those other cities do not contract? They each have their own?
The cities that what you're looking at on this chart, they have their own police departments. The cities, the contract with King County, for example, Shoreline, they have to hire many more officers, and they have to utilize many more resources to deal with the overall crime rates in their community. So we have been proactive, we have been efficient in the resources, and I think the most importantly is that the geographic location of our city and socioeconomics of our community plays a big role in that, the crime rates.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Okay, these are the changes that we have instituted in the budget or as adjustments as we were directed by council. On the revenue side, we were directed to lay in property tax levy rate at a 0% increase. So from the previous budget that you saw, we've reduced the budget $200,000 on the property tax revenue side. To counteract that, we have delayed or are proposing delaying the hiring of the police detective to the mid-year. That would be $75,000. Council also took action to do a zero COLA for the employees as opposed to a negative 0.4%. And so that had a $28,900 increase in expenditures. The total adjustment that we've made is $153,900 to the budget as you last saw it. What we have done is we have reduced in the general fund the contract contingency by $100,000, and we've also reduced the ending fund balance by the balance, the $53,900. That is what we've laid in as the adjustments based on council direction from the first reading. This is a high-level overview of operating and capital summary. 2009 adjusted budget would be $28 million for operating, $25 million for capital, $4 million for surface water, for a total of $57 million. 2010 budget is very, very similar. There has been some movement of capital funds from 2009 to 2010. You'll notice the increase up to $28 million. Operating budget has increased just very slightly to $29 million, primarily based on public safety increases there. Surface water management, again, we had the NPDES Phase 2 situation where we do have to increase our level of service related to that, which we've had discussions with council on that, and so that's approximately another increase there. So in total, for the biennial budget, we have a total budget for the 2 years of $119 million. On the property tax side, as we've discussed in the past, the assessed valuation has dropped about 16% from last year to this year. 2009 assessed value was $9.8 million. It has dropped to about $8.4 million.
Billion?
2010, or billion, I'm sorry. Thank you, Don. Historically, on the left side of the slide, we've maintained early in our history about $2.60, $2.61 per $1,000 of assessed value. As the assessed value increased, the inverse relationship to the levy rate comes into play. In 2009, our maximum levy amount that we levied, which was the maximum amount, was approximately $2.03 per $1,000. What we are proposing would be a $2.42 per $1,000 increase. That is due not by the fact that we're raising more money, it's holding things level, but it's just a function of the formula used. So if you'll note, in 2009 adjusted for annexations, it's about $20.3 million in property tax. We're proposing in 2010 that it remain the same at $20.3 million. To the average property or average homeowner in Sammamish, in 2009, the average value that we utilized was about $600,000 for the average home. Unfortunately, due to the economy that we've experienced in the last year, the average home price dropped about 16%. So therefore, that equates to about a $504,000 value. Applying the same amount for each homeowner, keeping the rates the same, each homeowner in 2010 would pay the same amount in 2010. 2009 and 2010 rates. The levy rate would go up, but the actual dollar amount levied would remain the same. So there would be a zero increase to the average homeowner.
A quick question, going back to that slide. Many people, of course, will see the 1220 number and then they'll look at their total property tax amount and find that it's much higher. About what portion of their property tax total bill does the city provide?
Thank you, Council Member. That's a very good point. The City of Sammamish levies approximately 20%. The rest of the property tax that people will see on their bill comes from a variety of other entities. And I will put in a plug for the property tax calculator that is on our city website. And if people are interested, they can actually get that breakout for their particular situation based on their address, what their assessed value is, et cetera. And they can see what they're paying to each taxing entity. It's quite informative.
Generally, those are county taxes, school districts. If a property is within the Sound Transit boundaries, the taxing boundaries and Sound Transit taxes. If they're in the hospital districts, there's a hospital district tax is also involved.
Right, on the north end of the city, it's Evergreen Hospital District.
Right, so those are the kind of the major lines.
Library district.
And the library district, that's about 50 cents per thousand. That's what the library district collects from the Sammamish taxpayers. So if a property owner is paying $10 total property tax, approximately $2 comes to the city and $8 pays for the other services.
Thank you. And so what you have before you is a property tax ordinance holding the levy constant, so it'll be a 0% increase. There's a budget ordinance, and there's also a substantial need resolution. The substantial need resolution is something that council has not seen in the past, but that is due to the fact that the implicit price deflator, as we discussed at the last session, was negative for this last year. So council, in order to hold things level or steady, would need to pass a resolution of substantial need. If council did not pass that resolution, then the property tax maximum levy amount would have to drop by 0.85%. So,
And by
with that,
passing this resolution, excuse me, we are able to bank
correct,
the 1%.
correct, and you were able to bank the 1% increase
But some
potential
future year,
capacity in a
if we
future
needed
year.
it, we could,
If council decided that it would be appropriate to avail themselves of that, you would have that available to you. Yes.
Are you through?
And that is the end of my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Further questions for Lyman? Kathy?
Could you go back to the page that shows the adjustments you have made to allow us to not increase the, I thought that's what caught my eye, was to delay the police detective hiring. Given the fact that we've heard the Southeast 20th budget come in, or the project come in, and I know we transfer a lot of money from our operating to our capital, why do we, if we really need this police detective, why are we delaying that by 6 months rather than looking for some other place to make up that $75,000, either in the pavement program or maybe not using as many consulting services? But wouldn't there be a better source? You made a very good case, Ron, for getting that police detective for next year. I just think $75,000 we could find someplace else.
We could. I'm not going to argue with that. The only hesitancy that I have is, Kathy, getting the bid price and finishing the project based upon the bid price are the two different things, unfortunately.
I know, but it was about half, so it was.
Yeah, and I agree with you. We're not going to exceed that. And we just had the bid opening. Obviously, it just came before us. If there's a way that I can accelerate that, I will try to do my best to accelerate this thing.
I would like to see that done.
Sure. Thank you for that comment.
I would support that.
Yeah. The other thing, and I want to go back to, and I want to thank Maureen and Helen for their comments on the Heritage Society, because I started quite a little bit of a tempest in a teapot when I suggested at one previous time that we allow the Heritage Society to store some of their goods in the Kelman House. And so I'd like to re-suggest that we look at that and see if that's a possibility as a way of helping out the Heritage Society. I know that the answer came back that it was probably not appropriate for a variety of reasons, but I would hope that we could relook at that.
We are already taking some of their stuff from storage. We started with the pictures. Actually, they're lovely pictures that we put them throughout the city, all conference rooms and the hallways and the offices, and we're proud of our heritage, and
Yes.
we intend to put some of those pictures here too.
Good,
So,
they look lovely up here.
yeah, and I will contact with them, see what other storage needs that they have. I need to understand first, and we'll see what we can do to help them.
Well, I guess, are you finished? I was going to
Yeah.
tag on something to that.
Go ahead.
Since we're talking about the Heritage Society and, you know, the option of finding, quote, free storage certainly would be the best option. But I've, over years, have been impressed with the work that they do for our community. I think that part of the spirit of a community is having a sense of its past. We have actually a rather interesting past with the logging history, the farming history, the railroad history, and I really applaud the people who have been trying to help preserve that. They've asked in an email, and then Helen Baxter referred to that in her comments, for a sum of $5,000 to help them with their work. I would like to see us find that, not by adding $5,000 to the total budget, but by finding some other place that we can squirrel that out. And if, like Kathy's suggesting, if there's a way that we can kind of give in-kind help, like free storage, then that could be offset from that, because I know that's part of their request. But I've just got to believe that we can find that. And again, I don't want to increase the total budget. I think that's the wrong thing to do in this time. But I think by trying to find a little here and a little there, we can do it. And I don't want to go into that kind of nitty-gritty detail here in this meeting, but I'd certainly be happy to meet with a few other council members and a few other staff members and try and see where we could maybe take a little here and a little there and try and accomplish that.
I think I'm going to be, if I may respond, it's easy to do. It's not a big challenge. These folks are asking for $5,000. I should be able to figure out a way to come up with $5,000 out of $37 million operating budget. So it's doable. I appreciate that we don't get into that details right now at this meeting, but I get the direction what council wants to accomplish.
Kathy?
And thank you for suggesting that. The only reason I didn't is that when I'd asked previously about the Kelman property, there were some concerns about the locking in the building and maybe turning the heat on. And so we may end up having to spend some costs there, because I do think that could be a good possibility, that or the storage area right outside the Kelman property. And if we use our $5,000 in that fashion, I think that's helping the Heritage Society. But I strongly support what you've just said about providing support for them, and all of us opening our checkbook too.
I do too, and how's the rest of the council feel?
I think Michelle is not supporting there. She's sitting in the
No,
corner.
not Michelle.
Very resistant.
No vote.
Well, the other thing is that they would really like to expand their website and have more resources and articles and things, resources available that people could, access, and so school kids could, access information off their website, and they haven't been able to fully develop that because it takes money to do that, so.
Well, one of my friends listens to, there's this whole project of having people tell their stories, their historical stories.
Mm-hmm.
My friend actually translates that and puts that into book form for the Issaquah Historical Society. And what an appropriate way to get information of people who have founded this area into the hands and into our library, so that the children can have that available to them. So again, I would like to see the Heritage Society helped. I think there are a lot of different ways we could, provide some support for them, whether it's the website or whether it's storage, some way that we're providing them some money. But I'd love to see more get into the library, and maybe there's a way of talking with the library at some point to see if there can be a historical corner that could be established, that the city and maybe some of the community organizations can help support some of that, so that that's
Good
available
idea.
for kids.
I think you hear the consensus of the council.
I got the message clear and loud. I have it, so I'll
Thank
figure
you.
out a way
Thank
to
you,
make
Kathy,
it,
for bringing
make
that
it
up.
work.
Other questions for Lyman? No? Well, then we should go back to 19, which is the resolution declaring a statement of substantial need for purposes of setting the limit factor. And do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, so we have the resolution making a finding of substantial need related to the 2010 property tax limit factors, and it's along the lines that Lyman presented, which means no increase in the total taxes per thousand for current properties.
That's correct.
What you do is you add on annexed property and new construction.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
I might be a little careful about how you say that, because people will be expecting the same property tax bill, and we all know that
yes.
there will be individual variations.
Right.
within the
Total for the
city.
city.
Our city, our piece,
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems darn that the waterfront property owners seem to increase at a rate higher than the rest of the city.
And the rest of us are pleased that that happens.
Yes. And we will vote to continue to support that.
So is there any further discussion on it? Mark?
I would just note that I support the idea of keeping our income to the city and the tax level, or the total tax level that the city receives from the population, the same for this year as for last year. people do need to understand, and I think in the future, the future council is really going to be needing to work on the idea that really any time the costs of the city go up more than 0 or 1%, then we start to fall behind. And so in years when the cost of living increased, like last year when staff had like a 5.8% increase, the city falls behind in those years, and that's been our experience most years. So this is good that we're doing this during this difficult financial time, but we do have in the future, as inflation comes back and increases above 1% or even above 0, we'll have to be looking at that 1% again.
Well, that's the good thing about being able to bank it, in that we can go back and capture it when the
That's
tables
right.
turn.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments? Are we ready for the question? All those in favor of the resolution, which is Resolution 2009-395, on the property tax levy, declaring a statement of substantial need, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote of 5-0, the resolution is passed.
Thank you.
Next would be item 20, which is the second reading of an ordinance relating to the levying of taxes and establishing the amount to be levied in 2010 on the assessed valuation of the property within the city. And that came out to be approximately $2.42 per thousand, which is the same issue. We're keeping the total taxes
It's the same.
the same. Lyman?
Mr. Mayor, I hate to interrupt. I believe that at the last meeting, you continued the public
Yeah,
hearing.
I'm getting to
Okay,
that.
I'm sorry.
I wanted to see if there were any questions of staff before we open the public hearing. No? Okay, so we'll open the public hearing, which was continued from the November 17th meeting. Is there anybody that would like to address the council on this? Seeing none, do we have any signed up, Madam Clerk? No? Then the public hearing is closed.
Thank you.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 2009-272 relating to the levying of taxes and establishing the amount to be raised in 2010 based on the assessed valuation of the property within the city.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any further discussion? No, ready for the question? All those in favor of ordinance 2009-272, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote of 5-0, the ordinance is approved. Now on 21, which is the second reading of an ordinance amending the 2009-2010 city biennial budget for the purpose of adjusting estimated revenues and expenditures. We had a fine presentation by Mr. Howard, and we had questions. Are there any other questions for staff? Then we'll do the continuation of the public hearing. Public hearing is now open again on the city biennial budget. Do we have anybody that would like to address the council? Seeing nobody, and even the Admiral's quiet tonight. Okay, the hearing's closed. Could I have a motion to adopt the 2009-2010 amendment to the city's 2009-2010 biennial budget?
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? I think that if you looked at the adjustments that Lyman had suggested, one was a reduction in contingencies. Well, we have very heavy contingencies we're carrying over at the end of this year, unless a disaster happens this month. Right. So I'm very comfortable with that.
Thank you.
And so I think that we've had study session and council meetings on the budget. I'm ready to go on it. Are we ready for the question? Mm-hmm. Okay. All those in favor of the ordinance amending the budget for the purpose of revising the 2009-2010 biennial budget, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote of 5-0, ordinance number 2009-273 is approved.
Mayor?
Yes, Mr. City Manager.
I want to thank the council. Appreciate for your good work thank you for your leadership. This again speaks one more time how you've been so sensitive to this delivery of services as well as the overall taxes for the community. Despite the fact that we had a big increase in the public safety, primarily in the police contract, and also we will have our fire services contract is going to increase. At least right now we know is about a 1.2%, but we don't know what the ultimate number is going to be.
That's because the station was moved up the road.
Station moved up. And then police services was about almost 4% increase. You kept the line. You basically said that we're going to collect the same amount of the taxes in 2009 and 2009. I think that speaks for your sensitivity to the community needs and an understanding of the current economic conditions. I appreciate your leadership and thank you for your support for the budget that was proposed before you.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager.
And in return, I'd like to thank you and the staff for being so responsive in adjusting the budget for that.
Absolutely. Okay, next is item 22.
I think the lineman is going to give the staff report for item number 22 also.
This is the second reading and public hearing on the critical areas sunset ordinance amendments.
That's Cameron Gurrell, our Community Development Director and Assistant City Manager. Will give the
Looks
staff
like Brett
report.
Favre to me.
Thank you, Ben. This is the last item in your packet. You saw this at your last meeting. This ordinance would simply extend the current sunset date out another 24 months. The council did ask the staff to compile a list of issues for that review, and that work is underway. So we'll be back reporting that to you either later this year or first part of next year. My recollection is you extended the public hearing on this to tonight as well. So
That's correct. Is there any other questions for staff, or any questions for staff at this point? No? Then public hearing is again open. Is there anybody that would like to address the council on the critical area sunset ordinance extension? Seeing nobody, public hearing is closed. So, do we have a motion? This is a second reading. So we have a motion to approve the ordinance amending Chapter 21A.50, environmentally critical areas of the Sammamish Municipal Code, which basically extends it an additional 2 years. Do you have a motion to that effect?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Mark?
I haven't heard any testimony or staff discuss any particular specific part of the critical area codes that either have been more trouble or less trouble, or are going to be a lot of work or less work, or really dying to do some part of it, or really don't want to do a part of it. I wanted to hear from Cameron, if that was possible, if there's what the perspective is from staff on the critical area code, and perhaps areas that would benefit from clarification or maybe a rethinking on those areas.
I'll offer just a couple of very brief comments. One, previously we brought to the council, and the council approved some code block amendments, including one specifically in the critical areas ordinance related to the erosion hazard areas. And that was probably the most, if you will, challenging aspect of the code that we found. And having that change made, I think, is going to help a few of the development applicants gain approval. So that was one that we've already taken care of. Generally, the critical areas code, I think, works pretty well and is very consistent with other jurisdictions. The one area that I heard mentioned last time that I think is an area that the council may wish to consider are features that are man-made but qualify, if you will, as critical areas now. The handy example is a dug pond, which may qualify as a wetland, and in some cases they do, and we often get concerns from property owners about, well, hey, this is not something that nature created, this is something that man created, and we really shouldn't treat it like a natural feature. So that's an area that we may want to have the council examine in this revision process. We'll, as I said, we'll compile what will probably be a targeted list of those types of issues, bring them to the council, and then if the council has other directions for us to follow, that's what we'll undertake.
Great, thank you.
Good. Other questions for staff? As you recall, 4 years ago, when we passed the critical area ordinance, we put the sunset clause in because at that point, we had, there was one council member that had some concerns with the buffers of Class 4 wetlands and wanted to see that addressed again. And so that's how the sunset clause got in there, so we will be addressing it at some point, probably before my term of service expires.
Oh, whoopee.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion? Are we ready for the question? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment to the critical areas ordinance extending the sunset clause 2 years, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? By your vote of 5-0, it's approved. And that's ordinance number 2009-274. Okay, next is unfinished business. There's nothing. Council reports. We'll start with Michelle.
Thank you. I went to a very interesting presentation this morning at a Rotary Club from the Built Green Executive Director. And I thought it would be a wonderful presentation to have at one of our study sessions. They've done a lot of research on the Built Green certification for new homes, even remodeled homes, and how they add market value and how you can, do them without adding actually a lot of cost to construction costs. And it's an offshoot of, it's supported by the Seattle Master Builders, but it's really picked up speed, and I think it's a great avenue for educating the public and builders on where they're going. And so, and I asked him if we were a supporter, because a lot of municipalities are, and we're not. So I would certainly like to explore that option and get them on a study session to come do a 20-minute overview of how the program works, how they do their certification. There's like a 3-star, 4-star, 5-star level, and so I think we'd all find it very beneficial. So.
That would be great. I've been reading some articles about how there's a real focus on, and that there's a recognition that this does not have to add a lot of cost to a building, which I think that was one of the big objections.
Yeah, and the market is moving. People want that, as long as the other factors it's in the community they want, and they're they're not going to give up location to get them. But if the other factors are there, they definitely want it, and the trend is really spiking up for people that want those kinds of programs. Did you want to add something, Cameron?
Well, be happy to answer any question if any other council member has it. Just to report, we have been engaged in a process to both train our staff on some of the Built Green techniques, and I've been, like we have joined some of the other environmentally or sustainability organizations. We haven't done that with the Built Green process yet, but that's on the to-do list of things to do. And we hosted actually one of those King County Green Sustainability Roundtable sessions here at Sammamish City Hall about 2 months ago, I think it was, and had I think probably the same fellow from Aaron, I think, and another fellow from the LEED certification program. And those are, in a sense, two flavors of these types of certifications, both of which are really interesting for us to know more about and to incorporate into our training here. So there is work happening at the staff level, and I just wanted to let you know that that's
wonderful.
Already resonating there.
Good. Okay.
Thanks. That's it.
Mark?
No report tonight.
Kathy?
Yes, I have a couple. They're short, though. This Saturday, the Sammamish Kiwanis Club, along with the Providence Point Kiwanis Club, the Skyline Key Club, and the Eastlake High School Key Club will be sponsoring our annual Breakfast with Santa at Good Samaritan Episcopal Church. And we have a Santa, maybe I shouldn't say that on television, about discuss the Santa Claus, but our Santa Claus is absolutely marvelous. He is just the most wonderful, jolly fellow, and we've had a great time doing this, and this is the 5th year that we've all worked together to put this program on. So it's a real fun event.
Doesn't he come with Mrs. Claus too? Santa?
No, Mrs. Claus doesn't come.
Oh, okay.
She stays home. She makes the cookies and she sends the food, but she doesn't come. And then on December 15th, unfortunately, the same night as one of our council meetings, the Transportation Choices Coalition is having its annual holiday event. I understand that Dow Constantine has been invited to be the speaker, so that will be, I think it'll be interesting if somebody can come. It's at 5:30 at the Fair Start. So if somebody can come for an hour or half an hour before they come to the council meeting, I think that would be very nice. Last night, I attended this Swedish Community Advisory Committee holiday party. That's a mouthful to say. It was a really wonderful event at John Mills' house up in Tallis. But the really exciting news coming out of there is that Swedish Hospital is on track and they've been working very closely with the city of Issaquah in their permit department. The permit folks have actually been going to Seattle to participate in the meetings. So there is some benefit in having a bit of a downturn in the building departments. They've actually been able to sit with the planners as they plan the building so that they have a real close understanding of what is happening. So there's an expectation that that permit is going to be issued. And actually, I was surprised that John said by sometime in June or July of next year, we should be able to see the outlines of the building. So that's really coming along pretty quickly. And it was really a fun event. Phil Dyer was there. He's on the committee and said hello to everybody. And lastly, but not least, I did attend the swearing in of Dow Constantine 2 weeks ago at Daniels
Hall or something.
Hall, Daniels Hall.
Yeah.
It has, for Dow, it has quite a significant event because it's the Methodist Church that was saved and is now owned by the city as an event center. The hall was absolutely packed. I have heard both from Fred Jarrett and from Fred Butler that there's a real honest commitment to get to know the entire county and to reach out to the communities. Fred is on the committee as well as people from Bellevue, and there's a whole group that are strategizing in various ways. I don't know if you've heard anything yet, Ben, but I think there are some plans to somehow come out to and meet with communities just to turn the leaf or turn the page a little bit and to begin to build a better relationship with all of the communities.
That's what I'm hearing also,
yes.
Kathy.
Mm-hmm. It was really, he gave a wonderful speech, and it was really a very warm event. I had no idea he was born here in West Seattle, and his parents are both teachers, and a lot of family there, a lot of people there. So it was very nice to be able to go, and a lot of the people from the Regional Transit Committee were there cheering him on.
Uh-huh.
So.
Good. Thank you, Kathy.
Cool.
Lee?
Just a brief comment, kind of tying back our budget discussion that we just finished to one of the things that had been talked about in a couple of different forums when I was back at National League of Cities, and that essentially is financial health of cities. One of the things that's very special about our situation and is a key to us being in good, solid financial condition is that we have a very substantial ending fund balance still, even after completing some fairly major construction programs. Our ending fund balance is, if I remember right, something like around $19 million. And within that are a couple of things that we've set up. We've set up a strategic reserve that's part of it, and as the mayor alluded to, it includes some construction contingencies and some other contingencies. And it was really, one of the things I've found fascinating is just continually trying to think about why are cities that are in good shape, why are they in good shape, and in many cases, why are cities that are in bad shape in bad shape? There's certainly situations that are beyond the control of some cities. I wouldn't want to be trying to manage the finances of Detroit right now. But in most cases, my conclusion is it's really the decisions that were made by the governing body and by the staff. And if those decisions are good decisions, you can wind up in a stronger situation. If they're poor decisions, you can wind up in a very bad situation very quickly. And the thing that is, of course, very easy to use the old joke is, you know, if there's checks in the checkbook, then you must be able to go out and spend some more. And the analogy would be that if there's funds in the ending fund balance, gee, we can go out and spend it. Well, you don't want to. You really want to have those contingencies. You want to have those reserves. And what rating agencies look at very carefully is, do you have something above what the bare minimums are? And I believe that's one of the reasons, one of the very important reasons that we have a AAA credit rating. So it's very satisfying to kind of look through this, to kind of take the lessons that other cities have learned sometimes in the hard way, and to conclude that because of the good work by the whole team, that we've made the better decisions, not the poor decisions. The caveat, of course, is you can get into trouble fairly quickly. So I hope that discipline continues into the future years.
Well said. It's interesting about the AAA bond rating. One of the factors that determines the AAA is how much bonded indebtedness you have. And if you have a low bonded indebtedness, they'll give you a AAA. So then you get a good rate on bonds. So if you go out with a good rate on bonds, borrow it all at one time before the rating goes down, right?
I don't want to underestimate that AAA bond rating is bad. We just got this increase last year when the economy was tumbling down. Since then, in the entire country, I can count by hands that how many jurisdictions were able to increase their bond rating. Most jurisdictions actually went down. We had a AA and we went up to AAA bond rating. And again, that is it's an independent agency. Come over here, take a look at your books. They do the assessment of your financial pictures, and they look at your long-term viability, and then they make a determination whether or not you're worth it to have the AAA bond rating. It's like a credit reporting on an individual basis. It's like having a credit report of above 720, 750 level. So that speaks again for your leadership, what you've been able to accomplish for the city.
I think that's going to be very important, especially if you decide to go forward with any kind of a bond issue. Coming from the investment side, I know that municipal issues are being looked at very carefully, and mostly investing in either municipalities where they're providing basic services, sewer, water, trash, or AAA, because there is a concern that the risk of anything less than a very, very high bond rating, given the state of the economy, that things could tip very quickly from maybe a AA to a negative AA.
Yep, well said.
Good. Is that your report?
That's my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The mayor's report. I'd like to report on a meeting this afternoon, which was the Kokanee Working Group, and Tom Odell went to it too. First introduction to the Little Red Fish. And there were about 18 people there, mostly technical types from Washington State Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, King County, and it was a good news. Chad Jackson gave a report on the reviewing of the kokanee coming in. His team checked the streams every day virtually from the beginning, actually sometime in October, and in Monday, he said Monday, and I don't know if he meant yesterday or a week ago Monday, he actually counted some 250 kokanee in Ebright Creek and 91 in Lewis Creek. There weren't any in Laughing Jacobs Creek, but in recent weeks, they've actually come up George Davis Creek, which is into the underground, into a house, if you like, and Zaccoose Creek, and I've seen them in Zaccoose and Ebright. In Ebright, you can just park on the east side on the parkway and just look down into the creek, and you might see a dozen of them right there.
How does that compare to last year?
Oh, this is
A
way.
couple weeks
They
ago
got
was
washed
very
out
Last year, the total was only about I think 40 or something in all the creeks last year. It was the last 2 years got washed out.
Yeah.
We've been trying to capture fish to take to the hatchery for 2 years now, and this year we're able to do it, and they captured so far, they collected 31 females and have somewhere between 31,000 and 35,000 fertilized eggs. And this is at the Cedar River Hatchery. And so it's very exciting to get that program started finally. And also there was discussion about a King Conservation District funded project which is basically about $45,000 that we got approved from King Conservation District to do a feasibility study on 10 different projects in the Sammamish Lake Basin for kokanee. Like, for example, daylighting more of Zekus Creek, or I should say making it more migratory friendly by working on the culverts. And also I talked with Roger Tabin, I think his name is, with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and he said there's some federal money available, and we might be able to work on a project to get federal money for fixing the culvert under the parkway on there. So he's going to follow up on that with us. So it was a very exciting meeting. I mean, it doesn't mean we've saved the kokanee. It means this is a good year,
Yeah.
and we're able to start the supplementation program. And we're going to do improvements to the website, and a video is being prepared. And I volunteered one of our future council members as a possible person to use in making the video. He doesn't know it yet.
They're gonna love you.
No, but King County is working on a video. They're recording the process of taking the fish and taking them down to the hatchery and that, and maybe get a 15-minute video that we can put on the cable channel. And then maybe have a video again in the springtime when the fry are released into the creeks. So the program is very encouraging. And that's what I have to report. Mr. City Manager.
Not a long time.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a report. I would like to have a discussion with the council with the term of the mayor in our city. And the reason I like to have this discussion because in the first week in January, you are going to select a new mayor and new deputy mayor. This is timely to have this
No,
discussion.
Lee and I are not going to. So can we leave?
Well, following the incorporation, the first city council discussed some basic procedures, aspects of conducting the city business. One of the topics involved the process for selecting the mayor. Although the state law establishes the rules and procedures for electing the mayor, which is done biannually, that's the state revised code Washington 35A.13033, Council back in 1999 had decided that we will do the election of the mayor on an annual basis. Now the city is 10 years old, and the basic policies and procedures for conducting council business have been established. I recommend that the process for selecting mayor be modified in order to bring it into compliance with state law. All the cities in our similar circumstances, code cities, around the Puget Sound region, have a 2-year mayor terms. Those cities are Kirkland, Bellevue, Newcastle, Mercer Island, Woodinville, Shoreline, Canmore, Bothell. And I mean, I can go through the statewide, the list is actually huge. We're kind of one of those exceptions out there. And the reason I think we need to do that, we're now mature city, almost mature city, 10 years old. The mayor is the spokesperson for our city. And in a 1-year term, unfortunately, it kind of limits the mayor's effectiveness in the regional arena. By the time the region gets to know the mayor, who the mayor is, and then within a very short period of time, we're in the process of electing a new mayor. I mean, I still get the emails for Mayor Huckabee, Mayor Cross, Mayor Felling. I even got one for Mayor Petiti. So I think it would serve us well as we move forward. Again, it's the decision of the council. I don't have any role to play in that, who gets to be the mayor among the 7 council members. I just hope that you would consider making this change before that election so that it doesn't come across that we're doing the favoritism one person versus the another person. So I need to get some thought process from council. If council, this makes sense to you, that we be more compliant with the state law, that we will be more consistent with the surrounding cities in the similar circumstances. I would like to bring a resolution for council's consideration at our next regular council meeting.
Comments from council members?
Well, I'm wondering, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is, I mean, I love to vote on things, and I'd be happy to vote on this, but on the other hand, I'm believing, since it's a forward-moving issue that will affect the future council, that maybe my replacement should be the one who's voting on it.
Kathy?
If nobody else had their hand up, I have to express similar comment that Lee did. I was very disappointed that we didn't move forward on Planning Commission and Art Commission because the council is changing over, and it was felt that without any discussion amongst us that we would not replace those people until we had a new council next year. To me, that's a less important decision than changing the rules of the council. So I feel very strongly that we should leave that for the council next year. I don't know what situation that leaves the city in, because essentially we had agreed to vote in the first. But I'm sure that they can do all the phone calls in the back room like we all did before too and come up with something.
Mark?
You know, I'm kind of intrigued by the idea. Because it would come up really right at the first meeting in January of the new council members. Tom Odell's here in the audience tonight, but I think it'd be good to brief the other two council members, or all three of them, and sort of go over this for them as well, so that they can be thinking about it and be ready to hit that issue, you know, with thoughtful comments when we reassemble right after the first of the year. And I'm with Kathy that I think it's something for the new council to decide.
Michelle?
I support that too. I think we should probably let that decision happen in January, although it could leave us hanging if we don't decide, right? Or would you would just stay in there until the decision was made?
Well, I think we're going to decide on a new mayor in January.
I bet you have a city attorney who would like to
Oh,
make
okay.
comments on this.
Mr. City Attorney?
I will either create an uproar or hopefully insert a bit of common sense. To me, this is a no-brainer. And I won't recount the early discussions of the first council as to the reasons for rotating the mayoral position. I think they made sense. But you've been in existence for 10 years, and you've been out of compliance with state law for 10 years. And although it probably doesn't have any ramifications of note, I just think that the appropriate message that any government entity should send is that not only do we make the rules, we follow the rules. And the rules in this instance aren't made by local government, they're made by the state legislature. And consequently, well, council will do what council will do. I really think the appropriate thing here and the appropriate message to send is that we are in compliance with state law.
Well, we could have the city manager draft up the resolution and at the next meeting have a discussion on it.
I'm up for that.
That's fine.
I'd appreciate it if you didn't. I'm feeling very uncomfortable with this discussion. It gives the appearance that there's a movement to try to keep you as mayor for a second year. As I said, you know, we had made a decision, or somebody had made a decision, that we could not even add Arts Commission members who have no political ties whatsoever, and they're in need of people, in order to keep that available for the next council. I think this is a discussion for the next council to decide whether they feel, as we did early on, that everybody should have the opportunity to experience leadership and that we should grow leaders within the council. I think that's a council discussion, and I don't think that, I think Lee has expressed that he doesn't feel it's his decision, and I don't feel it's my decision. I think the next council should make that decision.
Okay, point of clarification, it isn't the two-year term would not be this year for me and next year for me. The two-year term starts with new election according to the state law.
That's correct. And the state law, I mean, again, I just want to emphasize this again, and if I may, Kathy, difference between...
Thank you for that clarification. That,
Yeah.
It doesn't change my vote or my, my thought, but...
If I may, the difference between the boards and commission appointments and this, boards and commissions, and is at the pleasure of the council, we have a state law that we're trying to be in compliance. And the question might be is that why is the timing of this thing? I think the timing of this thing is that this will be the first year that the council will be electing a new mayor and new deputy mayor. And that's the January 1st meeting.
We do that every year.
Well, the deputy mayor usually is promoted to become
Not
the mayor.
always.
In the past, that's been the practice of the council.
Not always been the case, so I don't.
Well, and then we
think
had the
that's-
one year, we elected the same, didn't we have Troy be
Right.
mayor, was 2
Yeah.
years?
Right.
You guys done it once, and the 1 year, that term
We
we were compliant.
flip-flopped all over the place.
We have, yeah.
Well, I like to urge us to be the compliance. In terms of the timing, if you would prefer to have this thing in the first meeting in the January, we can bring that resolution before the election of the mayor and deputy mayor, but typically, first meeting in the January, we don't have a mayor. The first line of the item on the business is selecting the mayor to
That's
chair
okay,
that
Lee and
meeting.
I'll come back, we'll chair the meeting on Tuesday at that time.
And it puts the mayor in a difficult situation.
I know.
If we, at that time, if we bring this resolution after the mayor and
Well,
deputy mayor.
I would support getting the resolution out there because I think it would be, we would invite public comment on that. I would be interested in public comment. Bruce is saying that we probably should go down this road just because we've got to become in compliance at some point. But, you know, maybe we've done it this long. I don't know what's the penalty?
Is it true that if we don't do it, that the current mayor goes to jail? Is that
We don't have a jail.
The mayor stays mayor for life.
It's Groundhog Day all over
I
again.
would want to pick up on a comment that Ben, excuse me, made earlier, and that is, after the first year of being mayor, you actually know something.
Yeah.
And all that useful
Know
knowledge is immediately removed from you and passed on to someone who has less knowledge. And in terms of having an influence within the region, there's a benefit to having a consistent person there, even if it's only for a 2-year period. That's a lot more significant. I don't want to rub this in, but as far as I know, you're the only city that operates like this. So,
We've done it for 10 years.
That's true.
and
So maybe we're making a bigger deal out of this than we need.
I'll leave it to you to decide whether the experiment has been successful. I'm just, as your legal counsel, I'm doing my duty, and that is advising you to comply with the law.
Well, do we have a consensus to bring the resolution next meeting and discuss it at that point?
Well, I think we should be, and Jack and maybe, hopefully Nancy will be back and we haven't
I
heard.
think Jack is going to be out. They
Jack will
left
still be
today.
gone, but
He'll be
Nancy will
gone.
be back.
Oh, they're, for the
They
rest
left
of
today.
the.
He's gone, yeah, for the rest of the month, I understand. That's the message they sent to the Community Advisory Committee.
No, he's gone for these 2 meetings, this week and next week.
Okay.
Oh,
I was hoping he'd be here for the 15th.
Yes, he will be.
Well, we have good advice. If I could
Please.
chip in here, we have good advice, I think, from our city attorney on this. I do want to see us be in compliance with state law. I do want to say that I think that the symptoms that we've heard described tonight of the rapid turnover, or relatively rapid turnover of mayors hurts us regionally, I think is true. And I experienced that in trying to work with King County on Section 36, that there was really sort of a sense of how they were starting to time their decisions was, well, if you don't like where the decision might go or what Sammamish might like, just wait 3 months and we'll have a new mayor and we can try to work it the other way. So there's not only state law telling us we should do that, I agree that the problems caused by the annual turnover is also real.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll bring the resolution. That's what the council's
Yes.
consideration.
Do you have any other?
That's it, Mr. Mayor. I don't have any more council report. This will be, oh, I'm sorry, I should have another
Wow.
report lasting for
Go
6
have
minutes
beer.
so that
Oh.
we pass to 8 o'clock.
Oh,
This will be record.
Kathy has a comment.
Well, no, I have a question.
A question.
Have we had any feedback on the shoreline management yet
From ecology?
from
Yeah.
ecology?
We haven't got the formal response yet, but we got some good feedback from the homeowners, and we're going through them right now, and actually, they're good feedbacks. I mean, I haven't seen anything that is substantially changing from the council's direction, and if we do, we'll come back to you, but.
I had, I was just curious if we'd heard anything from ecology, and I just wanted to reiterate with Lyman, I had asked if we could get a report by year end on how our sales tax has been impacted by the change, and to see if there's some change. Because I was really curious, because I'd run into the, actually, he's the head of logistics for Nordstrom, and he was chatting about how they have shifted their whole way of stocking the stores, so they keep a minimal stockage, so that people will have to buy and have things sent to their home. And I don't know, I understand.
Well, retail sales, I think the one I heard is
But
consistent.
the last 4 things I bought from Nordstrom's have all come to my front door.
Good,
Because
so
they
we're
didn't
getting-
have them in
thank you.
stock. But, if that's something we're seeing other retailers pick up, I was just curious if we'd seen any consequences of that in our dollars.
I heard the national stats that the retail sales, that the location of the register has increased only 1% from last year, but internet sales have increased almost 13%. What I don't know is that, and we won't know that till the first quarter of the next year, is that the report that we got from the Department of Revenue is that
Okay, so it's
how
next year
did
we'll find
how the
out.
city perform in that.
Yeah. Well, I
We
do
will
know
know.
that we were at Costco on Friday, and there were a lot of TVs going out the door.
And we will have a study session next year to talk about that issue, and we would hope that and expect you to show up in that study session.
I certainly will.
No executive session. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
I think you set the record.
7:59 and 30 seconds.